Oh, hello there, and welcome to Phil Talking D20. So, today's video, DMing 101. I want to start a series of videos about games mastering, dungeon mastering, running the game as the bloke in charge, the gaffer, if you like. It's a really important role, and there aren't enough games masters in the world, and it's something that we need more of. And so I want to kind of start a series of videos that's going to kind of start to explore how you, watching this video, who's never run a session for anybody before, can start to form a structure for how to become a games master. Because there's lots of YouTube content about this for 5th edition and for Pathfinder. Well, there's not so much for Pathfinder, which is a shame. But the rules are fairly universal for any role-playing game. And I'm going to start with what I think is the most important starting point, which is going to possibly surprise some people, because it's not so much rules-focused, it's more fluff and flavour-focused. What do I mean by that? Oh, the mysteries will be revealed in time. Well, now, it's where you're gaming. And what I mean by that isn't, oh, we're all sat around a table in Phil's house. No, it's what environment are you gaming in? So, how can we go about doing that and creating that and having an idea for that? Well, fortunately, you've bought the core book for Pathfinder 2E, because you're a very clever sausage, and that's what you want to run. And that's what I've got in front of me. Exhibit A, my trusted Pathfinder 2 core rulebook. Now, why is it important to kind of think about where you're gaming first? Not rules, don't think about rules. Don't bog yourself down in looking at this really thick book and going, I can't do that. It's too big. Because like any problem, you don't look at the whole problem, you break it down into smaller constituent parts. The Art of War, Sun Tzu, great read, got a copy on my bookshelf. Divide your enemy and defeat them in part. Napoleon Bonaparte, he used the same philosophy from Sun Tzu. You're fighting 5 different enemies, and they all want to get together and defeat you. Don't let them. Attack one, defeat them, then attack the next one and defeat that. And that is how I'm approaching DM 101. I'm going to teach you how to divide your enemy and conquer in part. And I want to start with the world that you're gaming in. Now, lots of people get bogged down in world building. And it's great fun. So I can't blame them at all, because it is brilliant fun. But how much do you need? For your first session, you need a starting location and a few offshoot elements of that, because there's only so far you're going to get in a 1 to 4 to 6 hour session. Most gaming sessions are between an hour and 4 hours in relative terms. And that's kind of what you should be aiming for, a good few hours of gaming. So you can't game if you don't have a space, an environment to game in. Now, how do we use the core rulebook to get that? If you're wonderfully creative and you're immersed in all sorts of kind of fantasy kind of, narratives, you've read Lord of the Rings 12 times, and you've read books by Robin Hobb and all these other brilliant evocative authors like Bernard Cornwell and his King Arthur series or his Sharp series. Right? If you've watched Game of Thrones and you've immersed yourself in huge amounts of content, then you might be able to just sit down and go, I've got a really cool idea for a world and it's going to have this and that and the other in it. But if you haven't, or you're not confident enough in your own creativity to really want to embrace and create something from scratch, don't. Simply pick up the core rulebook and bypass everything else until you reach page 417. So already we've defeated 416 pages of this book. We've just gone in there with a big old power attack and slain them, and they've died, and we've gone, ha ha ha, 416 pages, I have defeated you in personal combat, because I'm ignoring you for the time being, because you're not important. And we get to page 400 and, well, all right, 415 pages, because, look, a really big, cool, juicy map. Oh, who doesn't love a good map? Looking at this map will instantly start firing off your thought processes, because you'll see things like Absalom, the Eye of Dread, the High Seas, the Mwangi Expanse, the Impossible Lands, the Golden Road, the Broken Lands, the Saga Lands, the Shining Kingdoms. There's all these wonderfully evocative names, and there's rivers, and there's lakes, and there's the Isle of Terror. And so you can instantly kind of be like, ooh, what's all this goodness? There's one page that gives you a kind of a bit of a rundown on the world. Then there's kind of a couple of pages that talk about the different regions. But this is where the good stuff starts, page 420. So we can, if we don't want to do huge amounts of reading, and like I said, it's literally, I mean, I'm asking you to read 1, 2, 3 pages to give yourself a little bit of a grounding in the world. And it's there, it's baked in, it's ready to go. It's locked and loaded, all right? But we need a starting point. We need this location, this environment to game in before we can do anything, before we can even start rolling dice and thinking about what rules we need to know. We need a space in which to use that. So we need a lens to look through and give us a theme and a narrative for our gaming sessions, and a kind of an ambiance, if you will, for our adventures that we're going to be taking part in as a group. So, page 420 onwards is a wonderful, evocative series of reasonably punchy paragraphs about the different regions in the Pathfinder 2e world. Absalom and the Starstone Isle is the first one we see. At the heart of the inner sea stands the Isle of Kortos, raised from the waters thousands of years ago as Aradin's first deific act. Ooh, evocative. This amazing feat marks the dawn of the Age of Enthronement and the first year of the Absalom Reckoning calendar. The city of Absalom itself, the largest in the inner sea region, sprawls on the southern shores of this isle, and at the city's heart stands the legendary Starstone Cathedral. Within the walls of this structure, the Starstone ever waits to test its next supplicants. The few mortals who pass this mystic test become gods themselves. This has made Absalom an oft-besieged metropolis, but in its nearly 5,000 years, it has never once fallen. Cool. Absalom, called by many the city at the centre of the world, boasts a population of over 300,000, and its culture is a true melting pot in both ancestry and belief. Even the city's architecture reflects this, as one might expect of a settlement of its age. From the towering and majestic temples of the Ascendant Court to the close-packed shops and guild halls of the Petal District, the sagging shanties in the puddles, Absalom's neighbourhoods never fail to present in a memorable skyline. Many world-reaching organisations were born in Absalom, notably the Pathfinder Society. And then there's a little bracketed note, page 436. Do you want to know more? To use the fabled phrase from Starship Troopers. Do you want to know more? The Isle of Kortos, also known as the Starstone Isle, has a similarly diverse ecosystem. And the verdant forests and grasslands of the west provide many of the resources Absalom needs, but to the east, the rugged stony deserts known as the Scrape, the dangerous Riven Hills, and the newly formed necromantic wastelands known as the Tyrant's Grasp present far harsher climates. The Isle of Erin, just north of Starstone Isle, hosts the second largest city in the area, Escadar, a rough seaport with more than its share of shady dealings and dangerous types. a sea of scum and villainy. Perhaps it's a bit like Mos Eisley. It sounds like it might be. Escadar also hosts large shipyards and maintains a strong navy that helps to keep the surrounding waters of the inner sea safe. A number of small islands also skirt the coast of the Isle of Kratos, or Kortos even. Some barren, some serving as hideouts for criminals and outcasts. Rising from the centre of the Isle of Kortos are the Kortos Mounts, a short but rugged range of tors that have over the years been ruled by minotaurs, harpies, dragons, and worse. A few treacherous passes allow travel through the mountains, but with the northern shore of the Isle of Kortos being dominated by the soggy tangles of Dunmire, those northern reaches offer little to draw anyone other than bandits and adventurers into these still untamed lands. And that is the entirety of the flavour text for Absalon and the Starstone Isle. Now, already in that, there are wonderful little evocative hand grabs that you can latch onto to kind of start having an idea and an understanding of what the players and you as a DM can throw in terms of adventure. There are the opportunities for sailing the high seas, dealing with bandits on these surrounding isles, because although this area is clearly going to be very powerful, they're still quite happy to say that there are areas that are dangerous, untamed, kind of, rich for exploration. And that's really important. You need these kind of building blocks in your bonds, so that you can create and have an understanding of what the players are going to be getting into. So, how do we use this? Session 0. Sit down before you're planning to do your first actual real session, session 1, where you're going to actually start a campaign, and have a chat with them as a group about what tickles their fancy. So, I suppose, as the DM, my advice would be read all of these, because you've got the Broken Lands, you've got the Eye of Dread, the heart of the continent of Avistan has rotted. This region is dominated by Lake Encarthan, a large inland sea that was, until recently, a well-travelled hub of trade. To the southwest stands the militaristic nation of Multhun, which had long engaged in an intermittent war against its northern neighbours, Nirmathas. Already you can see that they're starting to build these building blocks for narrative and world plot and adventure. The Broken Lands, far to the north of Absalon, sprawl the Broken Lands. Nations and wilderness united in their shared stature as fractured regions. Places where life itself has taken a blow and the struggle to survive is simply part of daily reality. Not all of the Broken Lands are consistently fraught with peril, but regardless of where one might settle down in these parts, tumultuous times, danger is rarely far from home. Again, opening line. The Golden Road, trade and travel rule the pathways of the so-called Golden Road, known for its shining sands and economic strength. Much of this region consists of sprawling desert wildernesses. The high seas, from fleets of pirates united under the Hurricane Queen of the Shackles to an ancient subaquatic empire of shape-changing monsters led by the sinister Veiled Masters. The high seas of Glorian present dangers both above and below the waves. Again, opening line, the high seas, they sound cool. The impossible lands, magic allows for astounding feats, yet even those who consider themselves experts in the magical arts pause in wonder before the spectacles to be found in the impossible lands. Ooh. The Mwangi Expanse. The Mwangi Expanse is home to a wide array of civilizations, both past and present. Even as it holds the largest stretch of wilderness in the inner sea region, in fact, one of the first civilizations to rise from the ashes of Earthfall rose here in this land. Earthfall. Do you want to know more? Google it. Earthfall is essentially a big ancient world history event that kind of rocked the very bedrock of the world, and led to the desolation of kind of previous kind of empires, and laid waste to it, and the new world rose up out of those ashes. So that's kind of what they're hinting at there. But again, dabble, read, get stuck into the world fluff. It's really cool. Old Cheliax. At its height, the Empire of Cheliax had holdings that reached from Varissia to Garund and east all the way to Galt. Aradin was prophesied to return to the world of mortals to usher in a new age of glory, and those prophecies predicted the Chelish city of Westground would be the point of his arrival. Instead, his death ignited civil war. It lasted decades. When the thrice-damned House of Thrune emerged as victor, Cheliax had changed forever. Under House Thrune's rule, Cheliax transformed into a nation that viewed hell, yes, that's right, hell, as a blueprint for government. The Church of Asmodeus, who is one of the archdevil evil gods, lawful evil, the Church of Asmodeus became Cheliax's official state religion, and diabolism its most powerful philosophy. Oh, scary stuff. Opening paragraph. The Saga Lands. While the opportunity for epic adventure exists throughout the world, in recent years it seems the Saga Lands have produced the most notorious and legendary tales. These sprawling northern reaches feature kingdoms ruled by Vikings and witches, realms home to mammoth-riding Celid clans, and a frontier land of free cities and dangerous wildernesses, all of which are steeped in the ancient legacy of the long-gone Empire of Thassalon. Ooh, what's Thassalon? Do you want to know more? Google it. Have a browse around. See what you can find out. Tell me in the comments below. I think Thassalon, from memory, is one of the empires that's destroyed by Earthfall. So yeah, there's a lot of fluff. It's good fluff as well. It's funky. Oh, no, sorry, Mike. It's jazzy. I did say I'd get jazzy in the next video. So there you go, Mike. Sorted you out. The Shining Kingdoms. The Empire of Taldor was historically the heart of the Shining Kingdoms. In the early age of enthronement, Taldor sent several armies of exploration to expand the nation's borders and colonize the surrounding lands. Today, Taldor is but a shadow of its former glory, but after a recent bout of internal strife, a progressive new empress has claimed the crown, and Taldor may be on the path to recover its old glory for the first time in centuries. A kingdom on the rise. And that gives you an incredibly brief snapshot of some of the other regions. Then we get to page 430, and it gets into cultures, which is brilliant. We've got culture. So not only can we start thinking about what the lands and the adventure opportunities might be for our gaming, we've got cultures. So we've got a huge swathe of human ethnicities, which is wonderful. You've got wonderful evocative artwork that's kind of giving you an idea about these kind of cultures and how they might appear. You've got the Garundi, the Kalashite, the Kelid, the Mwangi, the Nidalese, the Shawanti, the Talawan, the Tian, the Ulfan, the Varasan, and the Vudrani. And they're literally, again, it's not a huge amount of reading. You're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, but 5 or 6 lines of text, a really short paragraph to give you a grab of flavour. Now, I quite like the Ulfan. So let's go straight to the Ulfan, because even the artwork for an Ulfan guy, there he is. I mean, he's a Viking, isn't he? The Ulfan. The coastal raiders of the Ulfan clans are skilled sailors and bodyguards. They're often tall with pale to ruddy skin and blonde, light brown or red hair. They typically show pride in their appearance by adorning themselves with furs, horn and ivory. Ulfan have access to the Skald language. So we have regional languages. You know, don't be afraid to kind of, you know, not pull in as much or as little from these sections as you want. But again, we've got this idea that there are regional cultures, and those apply to the other races. And again, it kind of goes into a bit on those. But then when we get to page 433, creatures, and a wonderful bit of artwork of a green dragon. So what this is going to do is, if, again, we're an inexperienced, never run a game before full stop, or we've never run as a GM before, this is giving us very quick, brief snapshots of the flavour of monsters. Agoliths, demons, devils, dragons, genies, giants on the first page. So again, we're not having to do huge amounts of reading. We're dividing in part and conquering our enemies in smaller blocks of more digestible content. Don't look at the whole book and go, I can't do it. Target and take apart and dive into the bits you need. So, creatures. Let's do giants, because we're thinking about maybe using giants in our world. You don't have to read all of this. Don't feel like you do. Grab the bits that excite you. Countless tribes and varieties of these massive humanoids rule the rugged reaches of the world, from volcanic mountain ranges and stinking marshlands to trackless badlands. That's it. That's all they tell us. But that's all you really have to have a vibe for when you're kind of trying to kind of grab inspiration as a GM. Because GMing tip 101, guys, it starts with inspiration. You have to be excited about something and kind of fired up to run something. Because if you're not, if you don't like what you're running, you're going to do a rubbish job of running it because you're not into it. If you're into it, you're gonna. So really keep that in mind. It's important that you are being personally fulfilled in the experience as a GM so that you can GM well for your players and they will feed off of that enjoyment that you have and that passion and excitement that you have, and it will help them get engaged and build that key building block, enjoyment. You're in this to enjoy it. It's supposed to be fun. So if it's not fun, stop, look at why, address it, change it, move on. Don't just go, oh, well, I've got to. You don't. So we've done this little dabble on monsters. What comes next? I'm glad you asked. Page 435, factions. Ooh, factions. Now, again, these kind of sections of this Lost Omens kind of world guide that's in the core rulebook start with these. All the chapters do start with these really helpful little kind of preface points for the chapter. While nations and faith command vast resources and control entire regions, they must still compete for the loyalty of their followers. In addition to being swayed by church and state, many people are influenced by societal groups known as factions. These groups vary wildly in size and purpose, from local thieves guilds interested only in filling their pockets and bellies of their members, to far-reaching international commercial conglomerates with their own private armies. Again, if that fires you up and excites you, read on, because you've got the Aspis Consortium, the Bellflower Network, the Esoteric Order of the Palatine Eye. What a wonderful name. The Eagle Knights, the Firebrands, the Free Captains, the Hell Knights, the Knights of Last Wall, the Lion Blades. You've got the Red Mantis, the Pathfinder Society, the Night Heralds. You've got these wonderful, evocative little groups. And again, how much reading have you got to do? Little to none, because not everything in this section is going to be relevant. You're going to kind of go, oh, I quite like the sound of that. What do they do? Cool, I could use them. Happy days. If you read through them and you kind of think, oh, it sounds a bit complicated, it's not something I want to get into yet, don't use it. Don't run before you can walk. But again, it's just giving you flavour, ideas and inspiration. Knights of Last Wall directly relates to a particular region, and they're good at laying out why, so you can read a bit here and then go and reread, perhaps, or even read because you didn't bother, you just kind of skimmed through, kind of looking at the cool artwork. The first part of this bit, which is the different regions. So again, we can reference back depending on where we jump in and start our reading when we're looking for that inspiration about where we're gaming. The Knights of Last Wall. For centuries, the nation of Last Wall stood as a bulwark against the orcs of Belkson and the lingering threat of the Whispering Tyrant. But when the Whispering Tyrant escaped his prison, he brought his enemies in Last Wall a devastating apocalypse. Now Last Wall is destroyed, and the knights who once served there are without a home. In its absence, they have formed a ragtag group known as the Knights of Last Wall, and they carry on their charge to stand against the undead legions of the Whispering Tyrant wherever their skills are needed. So we mention the bulwark against the orcs of Belkson. So we find these kind of information points, and we quickly have a quick flashback to the map at the start of this section. Now, I know that is based around, I believe, the Eye of Dread is where they seem to be based from memory, because I'm 99% sure. Oh yeah, look, the Hold of Belkson. So you look at the Eye of Dread when you're looking at the map, and you'll see up here, Eye of Dread, and you'll see just up there, the Hold of Belkson. So they are predominantly based in that particular region. So you go to that particular region in the book, Eye of Dread, and you've got a chunk of stuff to read on page 422 about the Eye of Dread as an area that you might want to particularly use that particular group in that particular region. Easy. You've got these inspiration building blocks to help you start structuring what's there, what they can get stuck into. There's page 437, religion. Take it or leave it, but I advise you take it. And the reason I do is because the gods in this game are there because of their magic. If you're playing a divine caster, it's important to keep in mind from a GM perspective and a player perspective that your magic stems from a god. It is a gift from them to be used in their service. So that's important. Champions, clerics, druids of nature gods, they're using the power of their gods on the divine kind of spellcasting aspect to kind of enable their gods, their deities' will. And again, do you have to do a lot of reading? No, because you can skim through and have a quick gander and get a quick idea of the gods. Abadar, the master of the first vault, holds sway over cities, the law, merchants and wealth. Edicts, anathema, following alignments, and then devotee benefits are all listed. And again, much like all these other sections, nice and small. Do you have to read 14 pages about Abadar? No, you don't. So don't, if you don't want to. Relax, have a dabble, get a flavour for what's cool and exciting and interesting, and then encourage your players to do the same. Because, like I said, 5 minutes. Who hasn't got 5 minutes? How often are you on your phone gawping at the horror and the misery that is social media, and the vile hate and misery that's just willy-nilly flung around at people, by people, for no reason, serving no purpose as far as I can tell whatsoever. I'm not being too negative about social media. I think that's a fairly accurate representation. It's mostly bad news. So instead of wasting 15 minutes of your life staring at the horror that is social media, spend 10 minutes reading about a particular god that you think sounds cool so that you can use them in your world, be that as a player or as a GM. It's far more rewarding. So I quite like Caden Kellyan. He's one of my favourites. So the drunken hero, perhaps says something about my character, ascended from the mortal life on a drunken dare, becoming the god of ale, freedom and wine. I'm a fan of all of those things. I'm already sold. Caden promotes freedom and encourages others to find their own path in life. He fights for just causes and delights in the best indulgences. I mean, sign me up. Edicts: drink, free slaves, and aid the oppressed. Seek glory and adventure. Winning. Anathema: waste alcohol. That's his first anathema. Don't do that. Be mean or standoffish when drunk, or own slaves. Don't do that. and it's me. Follower alignments, neutral good, chaotic neutral. Now, if you've never DM'd before, you don't know what that means. But what are we doing? We're defeating in part. Again, go and look at the alignment section. Don't ask me what that is off the cuff. I don't know. But you can fire it into Google. And I imagine it will be coming up. It's one of those things where you kind of, they can't put a page number for everything. But I'm pretty sure the alignment section is coming up. So, and again, it's something we'll touch on when we're kind of, I suppose, starting to get into advanced DMing rules. For the time being, if you don't know what it means, Google it, or simply don't worry about it. It's not that important right now. There's a lot of gods, right? A lot of gods. So that's really cool because it means you've got lots of potential foes and friends that can be in the world and the play space as we're going along. And again, use them as much or as little as you want. And think about them in their contextual terms. So certain areas might have some gods more than others. So you might find that certain temples are more common than others, but they're probably going to be there if you bother to look for them. And then we go into a bit on faiths and philosophies, which aren't quite, they're not gods, they are exactly what they are. They're kind of alternative philosophies that other people might kind of follow, and a brief kind of bit of talk about those domains. Not so important when we're thinking about creativity. And then it moves into page 443, playing the game. Now, this is where I'm going to stop because I want to recap on why looking at that particular section, the Age of Lost Omens, that started on page 420, did I say? Let's just get back to the start. 416 is really important to start. You need to have the inspiration and an idea about where things are going to be happening before things can happen in that space. So take some time, have a bit of a read, and get excited about the fluff. And then once you've gone through that process, think about how you want to use it and where you're going to be setting things. And keep referencing this map. Keep going back and referencing that map because it will give you an idea about if you're going for one location, what other influences might push in to your play space from outside of it. And again, we're going to touch on that in more detail as we go through. So this is literally the building blocks of inspiring yourself as a games master. Get stuck in to the fluff and get kind of excited about the opportunities that these places and environments are going to present you and your party to explore and enjoy together. And then in the next video, we're going to start looking at how we pick one and then what we then need to do with it to create our first kind of, I suppose, solidifying our first kind of session for real, where we're planning session one. But again, it's a lengthy topic. It's going to be its own video. So hopefully you've enjoyed this look at the Age of Lost Omens and how you can use that in the core book to inspire yourself as a GM to start GMing. Because like I said, you can't start anything until you have a space in which to do your adventuring. You know, you don't just sit down and go, all right, well, roll some dice. It doesn't work. You have to have a space, a lens is the term that I really like, to look through at the environment you're gaming in and where you are and why that matters. So hopefully this is giving you a kind of a starting point to kind of go and get inspired. Drop me a like, drop me a subscription. Loads more content coming to the channel. Like I said, this DM 101 series is going to be a long running one. I'm going to start a Player 101 series as well, where I'm going to kind of introduce players into how to become their, how to create their first character and how to engage with the world and grow and develop, into becoming a more advanced and confident player. It all starts with this, though. Believe that you can do it, because it's not hard. Defeat your enemy in part. Divide and conquer. Don't try and read the whole book cover to cover. First, start with the inspiration, the flavour of the world. And once you're excited about the world, you can then start to learn how to create, using rules, the play space reflecting that. So hopefully this has been a help. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Like I said, next video, we're going to develop this topic further and push it into how we're going to create our first session. And let's crack on and let's stay safe, stay well, and get some more gaming goodness in our lives. So stay tuned, like, subscribe, drop me a comment if there's more you want to know in the comment section. I'll reply and provide my helpful advice where needed. And let's get the ball rolling on DM 101. Peace out. See you on the next video.